going to do quick introductions. Again, we wanted to spend our time on the kind of real depth of the content. So I'm just going to quickly run through the team. Matthew Hamilton, I don't know if you can wave at us, Matt. He's Vice President People Analytics with Protective Life. Matt and I have known each other for a long time. He is an avid blogger on LinkedIn, worth paying attention to. Professionally, he's a graduate of West Point and MIT. Has about 21 years experience in financial services. So he's a great person to follow in terms of how to actually pragmatically use the people data. Alongside Matt, we have Timea, Lestar. She's the Senior Director of People Analytics from ARM. And fascinating because ARM is a technology firm and Timea works in technology. So there's a whole bunch of tie-up around the use of data, the putting together data, the making data available and making the access to data easy, which I know all of us on the call will be fascinated to understand more of. Next, a long-standing friend, Søren. I hope I pronounced the Søren right. I've been practicing my O with the slash through it all week. So you can tell me later if I got it right, Søren. Søren Kold from the Lego Group. And he's the Director of People Analytics. Again, 15 years working in this space, helping not just build out what the dashboards, how are people using them, taking that to the HR business partner community within the Lego Group to take it to the practitioners. But finally, Gosia. Again, I've been practicing my pronunciation here. Gosia Gradowska. She's People Analytics Director with General Motors. Gosia has been in the People Analytics space for a super long time. Really focusing on helping talent decisions be made better, turning data to meaningful insights, responsible for the long-term strategy at People Analytics. And there was one thing I wanted to kind of highlight around all of the organizations. Every single business that's represented here is going through some kind of digital transformation, be it financial services, be it General Motors, be it digital experiences with Lego. So I think as a backdrop, I thought that was pretty interesting, just understanding that everybody's in that kind of same reinventing their business space. So enough from me. Let's kick off. Søren, I was going to invite you just to lay a foundation and quick summary on what is the regular work that your team is doing, if you would get us going.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you for the introduction. For all of you out there, the pronunciation of my name is Søren in Danish. It's quite difficult. You did a very good job, so job well done so far. But anyways, thanks for having me. I'd be happy to share, of course. I lead the People Analytics and Planning team at the Lego Group, and we are both a reporting and analytics team. So this means that we take responsibility for all HR reporting, but we also do ad hoc analytics reporting or projects, which hopefully lead to insights on relevant business problems to enable better decision-making for the business. So you can say on the reporting side, examples could be anything from making more operational reports available through our platforms for users to run themselves, but it's also our monthly cadence reporting on people planning, recruitment, etc. And finally, we also have time on the monthly leadership team meetings to go through the most relevant numbers and the reasoning behind any potential development. And part of this batch also goes to finance. So our footprint also develops into the business, right? So yeah. But we also have more business-focused reporting that we usually do through the reporting and analytics platform. We use Visier, where we build analysis and reports that deep dive, and we can share that with specific user groups in the business. And in this part of our reporting landscape, we also focus a lot on how we continuously can drive more value and more impactful reporting, which has a lot to do with us understanding the end users and the challenges they face. And finally, on the analytical side, our work may follow the relevant challenges, certain business processes, but it can also be more ad hoc, that we help translate business needs into practical analytical approaches, hopefully end up shedding some light on important business challenges.
That sounds like quite a busy time. So Timea, building on what Søren was saying, in the prior session, people were talking about that foundation. That, for me, that was a really good description of that foundation. We keep the business informed about the main people stuff. How does that sort of reflect what's going on for you at ARM?
I think just to building on top of what Søren said, we started on a very similar route. Actually, I'm coming from the business side. I was an operational lead, and we decided that we have to merge the classical people analytics and the business operations under my leadership, because we need to try to find answers to business problems. And this is where having the data is one side of the story. The other side is that what the business cares about. So alongside what Søren said, we do very similar things on top of it, where we are getting our hands dirty. It's about forecasting attrition, forecasting headcount, which you would consider a more classical finance activity. But the caveat is that we as people team, we have access to insights what a finance person wouldn't, like it interview details, and that helps us getting the models right and more accurate. And we really see value of providing insight to the management, and they can even change direction just based on data. Not always, but it's always helpful to I used to say that we have to keep a mirror to the executive management to say that you wanted to something, this is where you got to.
Yeah, nice.
It's not our job to, do all the actions all over the world, but it's just putting that mirror in front of the business. It's a very useful skill today in the people analytics space.
I love the analogy. It's like you're holding up a mirror and having people choose their direction. Gosia, anything you would add in terms of the foundational setup that's going on at General Motors?
Absolutely. I think that what we all have in common is definitely looking for business problems we can solve. So this is definitely great to hear. I would also add the technology setup in terms of data warehouse and the capabilities to automate and self-serve. So there's a lot of focus for us on that aspect, and workforce planning. We are looking into moving into more strategic workforce planning. I think that a lot of companies right now on the market are looking for skills. We have some great sessions today on skills as well. And that's one of the aspects where we're very closely connected to the business and helping them think through what will be needed short-term, long-term. I think this is such a key aspect, especially as we think about transformation. I think that's really a big one for my team, for people analytics to support.
I think it's great you mentioned we just come over on a 2-year period of when we implemented a strategic resource planning tool across all our engineering resources and try to map up with our 3 to 5 years roadmap that do we really have the future talent what we need in the pipe.
I love the description, and to help the audience understand a little, this is when we started preparing this as a session, we started to recognize the ripples that happen when you build an analytics function. You start often with the reporting and that core informational set, and then you get asked more questions, and then you get asked more questions, and then you get asked more questions. And as the team kind of unfolded what they were doing, it's like, yeah, we're all following this same set of ripples out across the pond. So interesting to see the commonalities and growth, using that as a foundation to say, where are we going? So then I was going to invite Matt in. You recently did a project around onboarding, and I think that's a nice example of that business connection, an analytic project piece, and then we can start talking about the future and where is it going. So Matt, over to you.
Yeah, so one thing thinking about people analytics, right, using it can help steer companies, can help point out where you have people challenges or opportunities, and a natural follow on from that, and it's probably an entirely different panel, if not a whole summit of, well, how do you show the value of that? How do you prove that what you got steered to is changing or improving because of things that you've done? But maybe a slightly different perspective is you can also look at things that you're doing and using the data and the processes, the mindset of people analytics to help prove out the value of other things. So this one project that we talked about that Ian asked to share is focused around onboarding. So to kind of set the stage, I'll take a step back. So about 2.5 years ago or so, if you weren't aware, there's this thing called a global pandemic that started, right? And so us, not unlike lots of companies, very quickly shifted to nearly complete remote work, employees going home and only, skeleton crew at the office. And so we started hiring people remotely. And throughout the pandemic, initially, right, turnover improved, right? Resignations went down for us. And I think a lot of companies saw that. Nobody's hiring, right? And our team was saying all along, like, it's going to bottom out. It's going to stop. It's going to turn around. And then sure enough, in 2021, the great resignation, or whatever you call it, the great reshuffle started. And so all throughout this time, people are leaving, we're hiring people. And what we also saw, and I think this is a common trend, that new hires tend to leave at a higher rate. And so we were seeing that pattern held, but it was even more so. And so a couple things kind of fell in place. We put in a digital experiential onboarding platform. So we recognize onboarding people, hires throughout the pandemic remotely. You need to do more than just get their direct deposit information and have them agree to policies and stuff. That's the compliance oriented side of onboarding. We really wanted to focus on the culture and the communication and the connection side of onboarding. So we put this experiential platform in place and started using it with our new hires. But then after a little bit of time, we wanted to focus on, well, is this really having the value that we want? So we kind of thought through, well, what are the outcome measures? So thinking, well, a better onboarding experience in the near term of new hires should lead to better new hire retention, better new hire engagement, better new hire performance. Those are the things we want to see. And so a very superficial level of looking at that would be you use it for a few months, and then you look at your overall top level company results from those across those outcomes, and ideally see that they're improving. And that is what we did and saw. But the value of kind of the mindsets of people and the mindset and approach of people analytics is to dig in further. And so we were able to really dig in and start disaggregating that data and not just show that, okay, the company is having the intended result, because that's good, but then that begs, well, could something else have been leading to that? Is it just is it a coincidence that you see a change at that time? So we started digging in and disaggregating the data in several different ways. A truly scientific method approach would have been use the onboarding platform with half of the people and not with half of the people, and then you compare the difference, right? We didn't quite go to that level.
Not very business friendly approach. Yeah.
yeah. Make the case that we're paying for this, but we're only using it 50%. But so what we did do is we were able to look at, well, how much are the new hires and their hiring managers using the platform? So we're able to segregate, and we disaggregated into really just 4 groups. Groups where both the hiring manager and the new hire are using it to a high degree, a majority of the time. Both are using it less than a majority of the time, and then the mix where one's using it, one's not. And so starting to look across all of those outcomes, and I'll just focus on the retention aspect, since that's kind of front and center for a lot of people. We sure enough, we saw that over a span of time, almost a year of it, that the new hire, when you had both the new hires and the managers engaging with the platform, using the tools and standardized communications, removing that variability of the experience, the variance of the experience that a new hire gets, when they're both using it a majority of the time, our retention at the 6-month mark was 50% better than retention of the group that didn't use a majority of it. And then the mixed groups, it was right in the middle. It was in between there. And so that it was great to see. And then
huge result.
I think this is a great example of how people analytics goes beyond the traditional, yes, how many employees we have on seat. And it's really taking how people are experiencing the company. And I don't think we have all the answers yet and all the technology at our fingertips as we would wish for, but actually giving space to people analytics is a huge opportunity to show that how we can turn, retention mean less wasted money on recruitment for rehire, retrain. And I really like this example, Matthew. It's really a good one to show how you can do value and how you can bring insight to the table.
It struck me there's a lot of commonality again around what the team were talking about. We build that foundation of informing the business on certain measures so they have the data in hand. But as it starts to continue, we start to shape business practice. And so we wanted to use that as a jumping off point. And again, potentially starting with Gosia, but please feel free to join in, folks. How do you see your practices developing? We've understood the baseline. We're getting into those influence the business kind of projects. How do you see your people analytics functions developing over time, either technically in terms of the infrastructure or on the business side in terms of the people that you're influencing? I'll invite Gosia to start, but please feel free to join in and build on the conversation.
No, this is great, and such a great question, Ian. I think that if we look across the industry, many people analytics team are investing in foundation, technology, storytelling, product ownership, right? We're seeing definitely growth in AI. But I think that when I think about this one thing that will help us advance the impact of people analytics, it's definitely the role that we can play in building and promoting a data-driven culture. So to me, that's in an essence, it fits everything that we do. And you can provide the most impactful insights and recommendations. You can build the best dashboards, game-changing predictive models. However, if you do not have that data-driven culture, you won't make progress because your customers will not take any actions based on your recommendations. And they will probably be curious. They will probably say, wow, well, it's super interesting. And of course, don't get me wrong, that curiosity is important in everything we do. However, it's really more about the what, so what, and now what, right? Like really being able to think about the business problem, starting with the business problem in mind. And I think that we often say that the answer to a data-driven culture is to upskill HR. And it's definitely one of the elements, but I have a little bit of a different opinion, because I just don't think we can tell HR business partners, you know what, come back to me when you're more comfortable using the data, right? So I don't think we can wait. We can definitely influence that, but we need to help them along the way. They need to join us on the analytics journey. And as an example, I would just say that I'm quite lucky because our business partners, our finance teams, they include us in conversations with business. And this is critical because we can then talk about hypotheses, success measurements, and recommendations. And I see this as a big shift for HR. Years ago, I think we were mostly working with HR. And right now there is this big shift, which is actually a fantastic opportunity and partnership, because we are also showcasing to HR, to the field team, how to drive these conversations, but they are key because they know the business and we don't have that aspect, right? So it really helps us drive adoption. It helps us connect the dots, and it helps across the board. If I think HR, business, and people analytics, it's really key. So maybe last go.
I'll just throw that out to the team, just to sort of the future of your function is beyond HR. It's connection to people managers. It's connection to finance. Like how does that sit with again the rest of the team? Jump in, put your hand up.
For me, coming from a business background, actually I have an easy way of connecting with the senior leaders in the company. And I think what I learned that we need the foundations, otherwise our data is not credible. But second, you need to tell the story, and you have to be a credible, authentic lead that yes, you did the homework, and yes, you're coming with the right data, and that people will listen to you and recognize as an expert.
Don't I just publish the dashboard and leave people alone?
No, I think honestly, I think people rarely read dashboards. So we invested a huge amount of time building self-service reports, which needs maintenance and so on. But it comes down that how much you can think ahead of your stakeholders. That, for example, for executive committee members, sometimes we created a 60-pager analytics in the past, and then we realized that they will not have the time to read. Yes. So the game is that how can I put something as a one-pager, but do it every week, so then they get a feel of what's going on. And this is get to know your customer, which is not just people. And I love what Gosia said, that traditionally we focused internally in HR, and now there is an opportunity to go beyond. And we are very much on the same learning path of how we can bring the whole people organization to the same journey, to be more data savvy, more tech savvy, and find systematic solutions.
So Matt, Søren, again, invite you in. That notion that you're influencing the business, you're reducing the volume of information, but you're upping the precision of the insight. Does that resonate with where you folks are going?
Yeah, definitely. And I love the conversation going on. Gosia saying the data culture, and that's a core foundation, a core framework that we think about. That there's a huge people component, not just the technology, right? People think that that it's technological barriers or challenges, but as I think most of us, or probably all of us, have experienced, the the technology can leapfrog very fast. It's pulling the people up along with it, and upskilling's part of that. We do have to, provide some learning opportunities, but then it's taking them by the hand, taking them along. In your statement, just build a dashboard, put it out there. So I have definitely learned I'm going to date myself with this, but the if you build it, they will come mentality. That is not true, right? If you just build something and put it out, people aren't gonna migrate to that. If you don't make something, obviously they're not going to get any value either, right? So it's definitely putting content out there, insights, making it available, but then making it as understandable, as easy as possible, reducing the burden for somebody to engage with that. That's what's going to help bring people along. And I think the faster companies do that and move outside of HR, the more benefit they get. Doing this at a prior company, it was culturally was a very long, slow road to get engagement outside of HR. I came into this company and intentionally did it much faster. If I like the approach, even RJ Milner at Uber is moderating another panel today, but when he went into Uber, he rolled out analytics to frontline managers like immediately, like there was no
6
lag.
months. Yeah. And Søren, again, make sure that you got time, because we talked prior about this, about your building of insight partners, and again, the Lego group's been very structured and intentional about building out the wave. So where do you see the future for your function in terms of connection up to the business?
Speaking on behalf of the people analytics team in the Lego group, we want in the future to act as trusted and strategic partners on people-related business decisions. And I think we have a strong belief in that we can get closer to be exactly that if we get as close as possible to the business. So in other words, you can say we try to close some of the people impact gap by taking the data to the business leaders, to decision makers. And we are on a journey setting up insights partner roles on our team. And with this role, we would like to support our business leaders, our HR business partners. I had a good conversation with one of our senior HR business partners the other day, and he compared the role as being an HR business partner to be a decathlete. So you have to be good at very many different things, and data and understanding analytics obviously being one of them. But the thing is, oftentimes it's a stretch. So what we want to is also be present outside of our team. We believe we can add value through direct partnering with our business areas. We will more likely be seen as a natural part in our business communities. I think we can more proactively seek opportunities being closer to the business agenda. And hopefully we can also create a higher demand for people-related insights. let
me check something there with you, because I think you're on an interesting path, which we've seen in a couple of places where the people analytics function started off in reporting, a little bit how an accounting or a control group would start off in finance. And then it's moved up to connect into the chief people officer level as the strategic contributor to business. That's then making it behave like an FP&A function, financial planning and analytics. And that goes out to the business as an overlay. Like, we don't expect a people manager, business leader, to do all the forecast management on their budget, especially if there's a sizable external data. We bring an individual with that technical capability as an overlay to engage with the financial decisions. What I hear in some of what everybody's suggesting is like we're moving teams towards being that overlay. It's less about data availability and data access. It's a lot more about data use and precision of data to a business problem.
Yeah, it's also to bring some people who knows the data foundation, what is possible. So listen into the conversations in the business, sit in with the leadership team meetings in various parts of the business, also to help our good people partners excel in what they're already good at, but just bring that analytical layer to it, so we can also be more proactive, and we can by ourselves go to the business, say, well, we discussed this last week, we've looked into things, this is what the data tells us. So in this journey, it's also core to our story to tell that we are not to position ourselves as, what we should be, but not, not the extra project manager, not the PowerPoint generator, not the senior data extraction assistant, Excel helper, whatever. So, in short, we'd like to be better than today to help interpret and bring insights to the table through data storytelling, and to support, that people data driven culture where decisions are to be made to benefit the business.
Beautiful summary. Just quickly, Matt, I'm just going to throw out the question, say, so what needs to happen to your technology to get you there? Because there's an element of the skills in the people side, but there's also an element in the technology, because lots of organizations still spend all their time just keeping their 230 BI dashboards up to date. Hierarchy change, security changes, some other change happens. And so like all the energy goes to the data management as opposed to going to the business answer. So what needs to happen, or what are you folks working on as a technology perspective to free up the space to do that value-added, deeper insight work? Because either you expand the pie or you shift the focus of the pie to really attack those challenges. So I see Timea, Matt, nodding. So one of you go.
Yeah, I think for me, I work in a company where we are designing and developing data centers. So for me, we are actually at the turning point that we can store classical HR data in classical systems, but probably we are at a tipping point where we want to use network data, email data, network analysis, ML in the future. So right now I'm just stepping away and think about the future and see that what data sets I need to answer typical business questions. And that's a different mindset compared to we need to do external reporting, we need to do DEI reporting. The question is that when do we need the data? So when we are doing decisions, for example, on the DEI space, like doing a DEI report, representation analytics once a year doesn't help. It does help when you do it as part of the talent review process to say that do we have the right talent metrics in place. So I think it's a lot depends on how you can embed the analytics into the integral part of the HR flow, as well as looking at the technology in a smart way, that there is plenty of data, how we can consolidate into useful chunks. And one of my current challenges, and that's a future to solve, is that how we take different data domains and overlay to them for really good insights for the business. And that's a huge opportunity.
And I think it's a great place to start, Timea, because as soon as you start to answer business questions, you quickly realize your HRIS is not useless, but it's just the foundation. It doesn't actually contain the data that answers those important questions. So mashing together a bunch of different data sets becomes important. Matt, you were going to jump in with something.
Yeah, I was going to say, keep in mind, sometimes less is more. So one, you don't want to hire an employee where their whole entire job is just keeping your 240 dashboards current, right? So sometimes less is more, and you can kind of get to this by leveraging your technology. So if you already have a platform, leverage the features that it has. If you don't have a platform, pay real close attention when you're looking to get one of what they can do. But that can help create, so, using the idea of, well, less is more, but let's get real focused at giving the right thing to the right person at the right time. And that helps create scalability, because especially in companies where it's lower maturity, you have less people on the less employees on the people analytics team. You can't be doing white glove, the white glove approach for every single leader. So you got to be able to leverage the technology to, think, well, what can be delivered automatically to different leaders based upon some criteria. That's something we have on our near-term roadmap, is put based upon an individual leader's data. The system will decide, do I deliver or not deliver this insight to them because it's relevant at this time or not? And so we push that out. We build it once and it's kind of running in the background. It's not requiring that human intervention. So it's scalable now. That frees up energy to go do other things, or to then have like HR business partners engage with the leaders who really need help, because on whatever the given thing is, they're really struggling.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that less information, but at a relevant time frame, especially if you're dealing with management. If you're dealing with the reporting, it's like, well, here's the weekly, here's the monthly. People kind of expect it. But if you're dealing with some of that more behavioral change piece, it's how do I know that you need this on this day? Like if you don't know what you don't know, it can be hard to trigger that. So it sounds like you're trying to push down that precision.
also think not overwhelming people. That's a challenge that we see is we've gone, the technology's increased so much that we can deliver so much more than they're able to consume. And if we don't help curate and feed them the right thing at the right time, they could get lost. Like, I don't even know what I should be doing right now.
Yeah.
And I would just add quickly, like for me, technology needs to be embedded in the people analytics strategy, because you got to think what you want to build, what you want to buy, where you want IT to help you build, and where you need to have access. So for me, I always look for technical capabilities on my team. We need to be able to run, our Python queries and be able to have the freedom and infrastructure to make sure we have the right variables for our predictive models. But on the other hand, I rely always on partners with IT as well. And we work very closely to build our EDW and data warehouse and make sure that we have access to data so that we can quickly answer some more complex questions. But still, the HCM is good for some reporting types of questions, but analytics question is a different part. And there are so many amazing external vendors, right, that we're actually looking into to leverage them, because that's a great opportunity. You don't always have to build everything. And I think if I think about the size of my company, it's a different, yes, it's a different challenge.
Well, I think that'd be quite daunting, Gosia, to try and go out to. I've no idea how many people managers you might have, even just to different business unit leaders, being able to get that relevant information to them at the right time.
Exactly.
I mean, it sounds like that's where you're headed. It's just you've got to build up the capability and then the technology to support that. Is that a fair?
That's a fair statement. And I would just add maybe last comment that. Most of us are probably within HR function. My team is positioned in a different way. I'm part of HR, working with CHRO and leadership team. However, I have a dotted line to the chief data analytics officer. And I always laugh a little bit in a good sense that this dual reporting line allows me to take best from both worlds. Because we can work together on innovation, we can work on analytics, on career paths, and technology that is more innovative. So I have that option, but then I still, I'm in my space within HR as well, right? So definitely it's helping, and it's an interesting structure. I was never part of dual reporting line. It was always HR in the past.
Yeah, I think that again, I think that's a really interesting example and another example of the change. I've met two organizations where the analytics group were connected up into that central data analytics center of excellence, and then the carve out was specifically for people. So there was always a domain specialty view around people are different, we need to handle it differently. But do you leverage the tools from the center? Do you have career paths for analysts who can then go off and work on customer or market analytics? So again, I think that's another part of the big change. So I think we're coming around to the closing. Some really interesting perspectives. The future is getting beyond HR. It's connecting to the business. I hope that's not a contentious statement. That's come through from every single one of you. We want to change the awareness and then subsequently the behavior of our management group to do things better for people. Like I'm seeing nodding heads, even if they're not being broadcast, that's there. There's an element of technology. We've got to get the right data together, but we also then got to deliver that data just the right amount at just the right time, which is a challenge. And then to the point that we've all made, we also then need the people with the skill to manage the conversation, to tell the story, to not just, hey, we think you should pay attention, but actually, hey, this is what it means. This is what you should do, that trigger for action. So pretty clear summary of where we're going. What I'd love is to go, starting with Søren, just go, panel person by panel person. What would be your one piece of advice to somebody who's trying to move their function forward? You're all well-established, complicated work, pushing out the boundaries. If you were to give one piece of advice to an individual who's like, how do I get the next ripple on my pond to go out? What one piece of advice would you have to how you move this forward?
So to be honest, I think that there are different ways depending on where you are today. Oftentimes, I would say start small, dream big, do something quite quickly, get the wheels rolling, get some buy-in, get buy-in from decision makers, team up with the stakeholders who find this to be very interesting and something that they cannot live without. Be less focused on basic reporting, but get that quick win, because once you get that quick win, you would get much more wiggle room. And if you start by developing the basics first, you can spend so much time you nearly drown yourself. But the other way, and we did it differently in Lego Group. We actually came out with the reporting analytics platform before the big cloud solution that we recently went live with to maintain all the people data that we have, and that way around. And I think you can most likely only do that in big organizations. But what it has propelled our organization in terms of maturity levels so fast forward has been tremendous. So we could, from a central point of view, push relevant reports and analysis, which sort of made us sure that people would not ask about, the next email list or the next list of birthdays, but focusing on business relevant stuff that has driven maturity to the level where it is today.
I think that's good advice. Focus on business relevant stuff, but keep it small and make somebody successful. So the good piece of advice.
I would say that whenever you go to a meeting, listen carefully, because people love their job, love their business unit. So be open-minded to listen a lot, and then they will open up to you and they will tell you the real problem. So then you have a real chance to go and pick, no matter of what's your system landscape, you can find the right data to help that person to move on. If you just go and take on the surface level that I need X report and you just dump it, you will never ever know what was the real question, what they tried to solve with data. And you will never have the chance to say that, hey, hang on a minute, I have a better one or a different one, which gives you better insight. So I would say that be very personal and find your good friends amongst the stakeholders. Not everybody will sit down with you for coffee all the time, but try to find good friends who are interested. And my trick question is that tell me more about your job.
Yes, that is, again, phenomenal advice. I love how you phrase it, the real problem. Often when people first show up with a problem statement, it's rarely the real problem. The problem may be something behind it. So
I love that. And especially as listening is so important and key to everything we do, because otherwise you will just start making assumptions, right? And then bias kicks in. So I think it's really key. I would say forget about technology. Don't worry about it. Forget about the most complex business problems. I think that find an ally, find someone who is interested in using data, and work with them to see how you can help them. And it doesn't have to be big, it can be small. And if you can't find that person, I would, to be honest, look at the HR priorities and see where you can start looking at data and pulling things together to drive conversations and start building insights. But you don't need technical, you don't need technology for that. You can really start there and slowly get buy-in, which is so critical, because that's the data-driven culture that we were talking about today.
And I appreciate the answer, Gosia, because I think a lot of people would be a little bit surprised that the answer to progress is not technology first. It's actually business first, and then formulate the technology and the data in behind it. But I actually think there's, again, real wisdom in understanding that approach. If you're going to get to the business, you got to start with a business problem. So Matt, again, you've built out the function a couple of times, so you got the chance to learn one time round and then try again a different time round. What are your secrets to building your practice out into the future?
Yeah, I'll sneak in 2 tips. One quick for the audience members who aren't doing any of this. Start now, don't wait. Right. So I think the analogy I use is the compounding effect of time value of money. You're always better off starting early. So don't wait until some problem arises or until our data is good enough and clean enough. Like, start now, because you have a long road in front of you. For the second tip for the teams that are in the space, and this I think applies whether you're very low maturity or even very high maturity, is don't get too reactive and too focused on your energies on any one thing at a time, right? So Gosia mentioned the data culture. We think of that in terms of the pillars, the mindset, the skill set, the tool set, and the data set. If you focus on if one of those is lagging and you focus only on it, well, you may bring it up, but then something else is going to be lagging. So you got to pay attention to everything and raise everything to, maybe not exactly in line, but together. And what really helps us do that, we just finished this year's, we do an annual maturity assessment where we get very detailed to understand where do we stand on these things. And it helps us set our plan for the next 12 months of, okay, in this area, we're going to do this. In this area, we're going to do this.